Welcome to Your Music Saved Us, where two friends blast ourselves into the past to relive and recontextualize the alternative Christian music we grew up listening to in the 1990s. My name is Clifton, and I'll be your host for this episode. And today I'm joined by a man known for his short and erratic attention span, Jay. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Clifton. That's pretty accurate. That's how I feel right now. I don't know if our listeners know this. I switched jobs this past year, and I work from home now, and I do feel that way sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, Jay, get more focused, and just all over the place. But anyway.
Working for myself, I had to learn that, like, I can't sit down and do something with no sound a lot of times. Like, I need, like, even a TV show will help me to, like, stay in place long enough to get work done. Because sometimes I just get up and walk around. I'm like, I'm supposed to be working. Why am I walking around? Like,
yeah. No, it's true. And I've learned even just sometimes grabbing my computer and like moving to a different chair in another room just to work on something just for this task to change it up. You just have to learn those little things, because if not, you kind of go crazy.
But if
anyway.
I have to read, I don't sit here at my desk. If I have to read, I go somewhere else with a computer.
See, that's smart.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right, Jay. Well, what are we listening to today?
We are going back 26 years and listening to Jetenderpaul's 1997 full-length debut, Trying Signals, the Histrionics of Suggestion.
Is this easy to find to listen to?
Shockingly, yes. It's on Spotify. When this album originally came out, they only made 500 copies. So it would not have been back in the day, but now it's on Spotify. And I believe you can find it on YouTube and some other places too. So not bad.
Cool. So how was this played in your youth group or anything? Like, what?
I wish it would have been like the coolest youth group ever. No, definitely not.
Okay, but I feel like maybe you tortured your parents with it.
It might have been played a little bit. I mean, the nice thing about that, I guess, for my parents would have been that the songs are so short that, you know, if you don't like one of them, you don't have to wait long. Something else is going to pop up.
It's true. All right. Well, before we dive into this album, let me remind everyone to visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute and get extended episodes. There's also someday going to be other episodes that I edit for these little short things that we've been doing that I just forget to finish and put on there. What are they called, Jay?
Yeah, Your Music Damned Us instead of Your Music Saved Us.
All right. Okay. So, Jay, why don't you tell us a little bit about Jetenderpaul?
So, Jetenderpaul, which, by the way, the name for the band comes from one of the band members' grade school friends, which I believe, just based on Facebooking and Indian names, is Jetenderpaul. Like, you know, two separate names. Already, if you can tell by the name and how they chose it, it might give you a sense of kind of the aesthetic of this band. But anyway, so Jetenderpaul formed in 1995 in Olathe, Kansas. And Olathe is, in Jetenderpaul's words, a bedroom community of Kansas City. And the core of Jetenderpaul was Bobby Cave on percussion, Randall Stevens or Randall of Particularity on vocals and guitar, Jared Miller or Jared 286 on vocals and bass, guitar, synth, and other sounds, and Jeff Teal or Jeffrey Chainsaw, depending on how you want to refer to all these guys, on electric and acoustic guitars, bass guitar, feedback drones. And then they had a few other members that joined them for live shows. For instance, there's a clip of them playing. Actually, you can see the whole set from them playing Cornerstone 2000. And I counted there's 7 of them on stage. So my apologies to everyone else in the band. I'm just going to focus on the core 4 guys for this sake. So from what I can tell, I think from what I read, they were high school friends, but the band didn't really start till they were in college, and I think they all kind of stuck around Olathe, Kansas City area. And so we'll get into this, but you can kind of tell by the lyrics that they're definitely in college and grad school when they're doing this album. So, and I want to quote now from an interview with a zine called Blue Star Journal that came out all the way back in the fall of 97. And this is kind of what they had to write about Jetenderpaul. It says, Jetenderpaul was created basically like their songs, on the fly. I would say the first time we were a band was a few weeks before we went down to this Tooth and Nail Fest down in Oklahoma. We decided we were going to record some songs, so we 4-tracked like 5 or 6 songs, says Jared. Their intention was to give the demo to the guys in Starflyer 59, hoping that Brandon Ebel would give it a listen. Brandon Ebel, by the way, side note, president of Tooth and Nail Records. Coincidentally, this was the same time Jeff Cloud was starting up Velvet Blue Music. Side note, Jeff Cloud played like bass for Starflyer, and he started the label Velvet Blue. And Jared continues, we ended up giving it to Jeff Cloud, and he had just started up Velvet Blue Music. So he decided that he wanted to get back with us and do some more things. So he had us record more demos, and that's how we started doing Jetenderpaul. The third demo they did became the Calypso 7-inch. And again, this is from the article. The Velvet Blue deal was appreciated because they had shipped demos off to many labels, Christian and secular. Randy Stevens adds, and before that, I tried a bunch of labels that were bad. Jared's laughing while he says this, which I can't mention those labels, but they were... I can't say that word. They're bad. Jared laughing. They suck. Many labels didn't even acknowledge that the demo was received, much less give them feedback. The Jetenderpaul recording process is very similar to that of legendary indie rockers Guided by Voices. For one, everything is recorded the first time it's played. And Jared says, we haven't ever played the songs normally when we record them, so we don't know how to play them. He adds, yeah, we record in my bedroom on 4-track and 8-track. And you know, it's like a pretty small bedroom. I live with my parents, and it's not air-conditioned the best that it could be. Randy adds enthusiastically, the sound is better than anything ever. If people would come in the bedroom and hear us, they would think we were heroes. It sounds so much better in that room. It sounds so full and beautiful, states Jared romantically. So the album was recorded in about November and December of 96 and released in the spring of 97. Like I said, only 500 copies were produced. And by the way, it was only the 5th CD that Velvet Blue Music had released. After Starflyer 59's Plugged, Jupiter James Called Us Paul, Lassie Foundation California EP, and Velvet Blue Music's compilation, The Future is Blue. So pretty early on in that label's life. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder, I mean, I think even though there's only 500 copies of this made, it's probably a better deal for them than getting on Tooth and Nail. I don't know that Brandon would have found this...
It's hard to say, right? Because you did have Daniel's son, especially that first album, A Prayer for Every Hour, which was like really lo-fi and weird. You had Joe Christmas, which I you could see Jetenderpaul and Joe Christmas playing together or something, right? That's not a huge stretch. So maybe, but you're right. I think like in some ways this kind of even more underground type thing kind of fits, at least for this first album.
Yeah. And they actually toured with, around the time of this first album, they toured with Driver 8 and Joy Electric, right?
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I believe they also toured a little bit with Starflyer, which would make sense because of Jeff Cloud.
Yeah.
Well, Clifton, why don't you ask me how this came into my life?
Yes, sir. All right, Jay, how did this album come into your life?
So Clifton, I was racking my brain. I was like, how did I first hear this? How did I first know about this? And I think, and I'm going to tell everyone to think, because I definitely could be wrong because my memory is really fuzzy. But I think Jetenderpaul either toured with or at least played this show with Starflyer 59. I went to see Starflyer in Oklahoma City in the spring of 97 when they were on their Americana tour. And I think Jetenderpaul was one of the opening bands. And by the way, there's pretty big Starflyer, fans online. So I found the date of this. It would have been April 6th, 1997. Again, not 100% sure Jetenderpaul was there, but I think so, because that would fit with the timeline of when this album was released, when Americana was released, and when I got it. But yeah.
Or maybe Jeff was selling.
He could have been, but I'm
blue
pretty
CDs.
sure I saw them, because I think it was the first time I've
Yeah.
ever seen a theremin played live and was like, what is that? And I remember liking it and thinking it was really weird. But again, I could be confusing this with Cornerstone or something else. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's where I got it. And maybe if somebody listening went to that or knows about that or whatever can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's where I think I got it.
And they formed with they formed because they wanted to give a demo. Like they didn't have songs already and they weren't playing together already. That seems really weird.
Well, it does till you start listening to this. It's just,
well, yeah,
you get the sense that they're just screwing around in the bedroom and they just kind of get, it's one thing about this album is it's like, there's a lot of little hooks and little melodies. And when I say little, I mean little, like short, but they kind of just capture one and then kind of build like a song around that or incorporate that into a song somehow, you know, and some of these are just song fragments on the album. And so I think it's just, oh, cool. Okay. We could do this. Yeah. It would just, you know, whatever. We'll get together. We'll hash some stuff out. There we go. We got a song. Boom. Next song. Here we go. That kind of thing.
Okay. So what did you think of this back in the day? Like, how did it, I don't know.
So I had nothing to compare it to. I had no idea who Guided by Voices were. I knew nothing about like that world. And so in some ways that was almost better in the sense that like, because I had nothing to compare it to, in some ways it almost didn't seem as strange. It was just like, oh, cool, another Christian band doing their thing. And so we've talked about on the show, like, because we had such a, like, we didn't have exposure to the broader world. We just basically had what we got through the Christian bookstore or the Christian world, that like, all these a lot of these bands were playing different styles of music, right? I mean, you talked about Joy Electric. That's very different than like the punk bands you were listening to and stuff. And so it was just like, oh, I've never heard anything like this, but okay, I guess this is what Jetenderpaul sounds like.
Yeah.
You know? And so I liked it. I liked that it was short. I thought the songs were catchy. Like, I listened to it quite a bit. I remember driving around in my car a lot and listening to a lot of these songs. Like, I liked it.
Yeah, I can't imagine what I would have thought about it back in the day. I mean, I think I would have liked it. I mean, I this is the kind of, you know, indie pop that I enjoy for the most part, you know. And you know, I like short songs. I like things that are experimental and taking risks, like they do quite a bit here. You know, so I can't imagine that I wouldn't have liked it. But at the same time, I wonder if I would have had a framework around which to understand it. You know?
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I at all really understood some of the stuff they were trying to do. Even now going back, I was like, oh, these song titles, some of these are pretty funny. Like, I had no concept of that back then. But I did enjoy the melodies and the songs, you know?
Yeah. So have you continued to listen to this over the years, or is this something you were coming back to for the podcast?
You know what? I actually did a little bit come back to this occasionally. So this is one more than some of the albums that I have revisited some.
Okay. So going back to listen to it for the podcast, what were you expecting, I guess?
I mean,
what you expect? What were you expecting in relation to what you found?
I was just kind of thinking about like, okay, this will be little catchy short songs, which was right. But the thing I hadn't expected was, like I just said, kind of the humor in it. Like the song titles, some of them we'll get to it, but some of them are pretty funny. And when I sat down and started trying to type out some of the lyrics for this, because by the way, the lyrics were not included. So anything you hear on here is like Clifton and I trying to interpret what they're saying. Some songs are much easier than others, but those were pretty funny in parts too. So you know, and as I was exploring more and looking at that interview and stuff, I was like, oh, these guys have a pretty good sense of humor about everything they're doing. They're clearly like not taking themselves too seriously, even though I think they actually do some pretty great stuff musically. Even here in this first album, it's clearly not like, they're tongue-in-cheek on stuff, you know.
I think one of the reasons I may have had a hard time listening to this back in the day, if I ever had, which I didn't, which we'll talk about when we get around to talking about the cover for this album, is that so much of my understanding, even though I liked, like MXPX, which, you can almost claim isn't that different, like Teenage Politics has like 18 songs on or something like that, and they're short and they go by fast. But I think they're more seriously written in the sense that MXPX always has a point with their songs, and I think that my little brain, raised in this very sheltered Christian community, with the idea that Christian music is supposed to, or any music, but especially the Christian music that we're supposed to be listening to, is supposed to say something about God or whatever, I think I may have found this a little hard to understand what they were trying to do.
Fair. Yeah, because I think looking back on it now, it's clear that, like, again, a lot of it's like funny. You can tell they're not taking it too seriously, which is nice. I actually really like that aspect of it. But yes, back in the day, it would have been like, we would have been scouring these songs like, okay, well, they kind of mentioned God there, so this surely is about that.
Yeah, every once in a while. Yeah.
Really searching for some kind of deeper meaning where I don't think there is much in most of these.
Yeah. Also, I feel like really jealous, I think, of people like the guys in this band who grew up with access to music that they got to experience at a young age, like that it wasn't just Tooth and Nail, like we've talked about how much Tooth and Nail was a great experience in the sense that we got this like, this indie record store in our Christian bookstore, but at the same time, that's still really like we're kind of seeing it filtered through like the imaginations of 2 or 3 record owners,
Yeah.
record label owners.
Yeah, true. Like, it would have been nice to been able to listen to Guided by Voices or Elephant Six Bands or whoever else these guys are influenced by.
Exactly.
Back in the day. I want to stop for a second though and ask, what did you think about this? Because this, I'll be honest, this was one of the records I was so looking forward to the most sharing with you, because I thought, oh, Clifton, I think will really like this. So, like, what was your initial impression? What did you think?
Yeah, my intro for you for this episode was almost a man who has failed to tell me about this album for 20-something years. Because I really enjoyed it. It's like I will say that there's a couple songs in here that reminded me of other things, and when I went to listen to those things were superior to this, but at the same time, this is still great stuff. Like, I really enjoyed listening to this. It's just catchy little experimentations on hooks and melodies, and that's the kind of stuff that I just love. So
good.
I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I kind of wish a little behind the scenes. We're kind of didn't take as long to prepare for this one as much as some other episodes. I kind of wish we had. This was one of the ones that we took like 3 weeks to prepare for instead of doing it quickly. But yeah.
Well, to be fair though, I feel like we found every single thing we can at this point on this band because there's just not a ton.
Yes, no. I'm just saying, like,
just listening
I could have listened to it in my car, like, just
yeah.
driving around and stuff like that. And really dug deeper into the songs, like, experientially.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. All right. Well, you want to dive into some songs?
I do. And I will tell you, again, I'm eternally grateful to the 90s Christian Music Recovery Group on Facebook. If you're not a member, you should be. And they're not paying us to plug it. It's just, it's really nice. And somebody somewhere, I tend to go back, and especially albums like this when it's hard to find stuff, search in there because you never know. And somebody in the group pointed out that Jeff Teal, aka Chainsaw, it's just funny when you can hear what this band sounds like. Just no one sounds like they need the nickname Chainsaw to be in this band. Some point after this album was released, on their website wrote up kind of a song by song, I don't know what you'd call it, description of the album. And I'm going to read some of that as we go through. Yeah. And I do want to read you his description of the entire album, if you don't mind, because I think it kind of gets into like where they were going on this and kind of their sensibilities. So again, this is quote from Jeff Teal. He says, "As you can tell, there are a lot of tunes on this record. Lots of them are just little ditties, tidbits here and there that are supposed to aid as fillers. We are all brainwashed by the rock and roll industry to think that filler songs are a no-no, that every song should have a reason for being on the complete album, that every tune to be a complete composition, no sentence fragments, so to speak. Don't think so. We feel that's extremely boring. Records today lack innovation and spontaneity. That's why we put tunes like Approaching, Hey Chasm, and Pretty Pretty Piano on a full-length record, to keep the listener on his or her feet and to mix a wide spectrum of music in a 45-minute or so time slot. That is also the reason why we record everything onto a home Porta Studio 4 and 8-track machine, to keep that spontaneity instilled subconsciously in the listener. Trying Signals, the Histrionics of Suggestion was mixed and laid out so that every time the listener touches the play button on the CD player, throws in a cassette in a car stereo, or puts the turntable needle down on the vinyl, he or she will hear quirks and passages never detected through previous listenings, yet humming the general melody of that same song that you heard over and over again through those previous listenings. That's how most great records are. Some of the best records were made years and years ago, but every time you listen to them, it's a refreshing and intimate experience. We're not saying this album is going to change music as we see it today, or 10 years from now will go on some critics' Decade's 20 Best list. It's just our stab at excellence, be it not so sharp knife. Happy listening." So, I do think that's actually like a pretty good way to start thinking about this, because some of these songs are fragments, some of these are just little ditties, as he said, but it's fun. So,
cool.
Yeah, so song number 1, Turning the Tables. This starts with kind of like starts with vocals, and with kind of like a clean guitar chord, but you can also hear these kind of, I would call them like vinyl crackling sounds underneath it. And so I think you can just immediately tell this is going to be kind of like lo-fi. And the song is all of 1 minute and 6 seconds long. And I feel like most of these songs on here, that's all it really needs to be. It kind of just gets in and gets out, does what it needs to do. And it gives you a pretty good indication of what's to come on the album.
Rise and shine like the sun. Turn off the turntables. Here we are, having fun. It's where we've always been. It never will be as beautiful as it is today. Feel the warmth of God's grace and dismiss the foam of fables. Put on a happy face and feel that joy again. It never will be easier than it will be today, no matter what day it is, so turn it on.
So Clifton, you just played the entire song.
Because it's short. Yeah, so I think if you can say that they have a formula, like for their instrumentation, not so much for like song arrangements or whatever, I mean like order, there's almost always like a guitar or two and drums and synths. There's always a bunch of at least one or two synths in the background doing weird things.
Or something, we'll get to this in another song, but something that sounds like synths, and then I read Chainsaw's description, I was like, oh, that's what that is. But yes, something weird.
They do tend to be various things, yes.
It's like they don't just take a straight song with like guitar-based drums. They've almost always added something in on top of that. Because you got 8 tracks, so why not, right?
Yeah, why not?
I felt like lyrically this song was pretty easy to understand. So if you want, I can just read them. This one also mentions God. So, Christian J back in the day would have been like, okay, see, yeah, these guys are Christian. It's all good. But he just says, rise and shine like the sun, turn off the turntable. Here we are having fun. It's where we've always been. It never will be as beautiful as it is today. And here comes the God part. He says, feel the warmth of God's grace and dismiss the, Clifton, I'm curious what you thought. I thought he said dismiss the FOMO fables, like fear of missing out.
I thought it was FOMO, or I have written down just to be funny as Homo Faithfuls. But I don't know. I couldn't figure it out.
And he says, put on a happy face and feel that joy again. It never will be easier than it will be today, no matter what day it is, so turn it on. And lyrically, I like some of the other songs better, but I'm going to say none of them are going to make a lot of sense unless I'm completely missed something.
Let me show you how I did my how I went back and tried to find the vocals. Is the instrument that I use to take the vocals out of music that I can use for the intro and whatnot for the podcast will also just isolate the vocals.
Okay.
And so I use that, and I just want to give everyone a taste here of what that sounds like.
Rise and shine like the sun. Turn off the turntables. Here we are, having fun. It's where we've always been. It never will be as beautiful as it is today.
Made it pretty easy to get there, but I still can't get that one word. It is something fables, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how those instruments kind of bled over at certain parts over his vocals, probably because it's all kind of, compressed together.
Yeah, so on songs that are really well mixed, you can't. It can pull out the vocals really easily. But on lower 5 stuff, you get a little bit of crossover with this instrument. Yeah.
So can I tell you what Jeff Teal, aka Chainsaw, had to say about the song on his write-up? He said, quote, "This tune was written with the year 1965 in mind, considering it is nothing more than a composition of every song every British invasion band ever wrote. More of an intro to the record than a true track. Jared on vocals." So, and it does work well as an intro. It is probably, of all the songs on here, it makes the most sense to start the album with this one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's got a nice little build up to breaking into something that's probably the most similar to a pop song for 30 seconds on this album.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's continue on to track 2, Trying Signals.
Yeah, so this one is quite a bit different sounding. It's, a lot of these songs have the drum click count off, so it's got that, but then the whole band comes in and it's really distorted, kind of minor chordy sounding, but it's still catchy. Like, even this distorted part at the beginning kind of has enough melody in it that it's memorable, and I feel like that's a good example of something that happens just all over this album. There's just lots of little catchy melodies. They can be vocals, guitars, other instruments, but they just kind of find one, and they either kind of insert it somewhere or they just kind of ride it out throughout the very short song. So this is a title track, but in my opinion, it's definitely not the best track on here.
No, it's not. No. Yeah, there's this guitar that's like that's like really harshly fuzzed out, kind of thing at the beginning. Yeah. and over again, I found myself finding things very familiar about these songs. Like, and I even went to the point that I even tried to go back and find other songs that sounded like this, and I never could. I don't know if it's just melodies that are so catchy that they seem familiar immediately, or if there's just a lot of strong influences coming here. But the part where it really gets me here is that part that's like, I can't say a word, I can't be at your party. You play it again. That part, yeah. I don't know, but it's just a really catchy song. Lots of I think this one has more kind of vocal hooks in it than most of their songs.
Yes, but I can't understand what he's saying in most of the song. The vocals are buried farther back in it, and this was the one I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try. I cannot. I don't know what he's saying.
All right, let's try this again. You ready?
Okay.
Trying to go from June to June. Look out for the candles, 'cause they fall through. I can't even say a word. I can feel your heartbeat. I'm trying to
Yeah, it's really hard.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. It's not really much
Yeah,
better.
this is so the vocals on this are so lo-fi that it's really hard to pull them out. What I ended up doing with this one is I mixed a little bit of the original song in, just like really quiet compared to everything else. And here's what I got.
Okay.
I don't know that any of this is right,
Let's go for it.
but I got trying signals from June to June. But God put a candle something. I can't even say a word. I can something your party. I try to be there. I can't something. I've offered up my favorite room, something like that. I don't know. Keep dancing from station to station. You recall it's like the base of a nation. I don't. But
That's
nation is probably
That's
right.
what it sounds like, though. I remember that part. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She can't even say a word about your party, and then I can't. The last line is just so buried in everything. I can't make it out at all.
Yeah. Not clear, but it's still a fun song. Yeah.
I think it might be about a birthday party. Yeah, I don't know, but it's fun. I like I said, with a lot of these songs, I'm at a loss for what to say because they're just fun little pop songs, you know, that are in pop songs. The beautiful thing about pop songs is like the same thing with like sitcoms is like they're kind of throwaway to a certain extent, you know, but at the same time they can mean so much to you for inexplicable reasons.
Yeah.
And that's the paradox of pop music is that, especially with stuff like this, is when it's just little experimental things like this, is that it's so fun to listen to, but at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, you know, it's great, and I kind of don't want to talk about it because like the whole point of listening to it was to listen to it and to enjoy it.
Here is Chainsaw's write-up on this one.
All right.
And I believe he's being sarcastic at some point. You tell me what you think. He said, this was the first song written for the album, so it gets the title track name. This one goes over particularly well live, and also turned out to be one of the best sounding tracks on the record. It's not often that happens. Randy on vocals.
All right.
I'm assuming that best sounding part, he is being sarcastic.
I don't know. He might mean that. Like, you know, like the lo-fi thing works in your favor sometimes. So here's the thing. Like, one of the things that happens when you distort a guitar, for example, with like, you know, especially with a tube guitar amp, is that it creates harmonics. And the reason that happens is because the wave is being cut short, right? But when you have weird technologies cutting waves short Like, I literally mean like the sound wave that goes up and down, as it travels. So when you have weird technologies cutting waves short, they create harmonics. And sometimes those harmonics bring out things that otherwise wouldn't be there because two things are interacting with each other. And this is the reason lo-fi music works, I think. Is that it creates things that aren't technically there. Like you can have two things interact with each other in a way that you didn't create. Like it wasn't something that you put in there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe he means it. Maybe he thinks that the lo-fi-ness of this sounds great and he loves how everything is interacting together. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe. Or maybe he does agree that it's, maybe not the best sounding song on here, but yeah, whatever.
Well, here's the thing. So if you read the top part of this little explainer page that he gave us here, if you read the top part here, he says, all mixing was done on January 11th, 1997 onto DAT with the aids of a spectrum analysis and a noise reduction, quote, hush unit, which, as you can tell, didn't play that big a role in several parts. That's fine with us, though. It keeps you on your toes. So, I don't know. Like, they very... I mean, it's mentioned I don't know if it was in that full interview that you just read some stuff from or from another article, but they mentioned doing the lo-fi stuff on purpose.
Oh yeah, and actually they do it really well.
And they do.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, let's move on to track 3, the maracas of. Is it Suspicion?
It's actually Suspicion. I went back and looked. There's an error on the site.
Okay.
Yeah, the maracas of Suspicion, which this is a good title of a song. And you're going to see some other songs that have even better titles as we go.
Yes.
This one is not as fuzzed up. It's easier to understand. It sounds a little brighter. And there are, I think, maracas in this song.
Yes.
I think there's probably Casio keyboard or something else going on in here too. It's electronic sounding,
Mm-hmm.
but it just kind of goes right into the drum clicks and then he's just straight into, the I never missed you hardly before. And just this nice little melody. The song even sort of has a bridge, but it's only 1 minute and 13 seconds long, and it's a nice one. I like this one quite a bit.
Yeah, so this one definitely has some fake hand claps.
Yeah.
And my favorite, but they're fake. They're definitely like a Casio keyboard from the 80s type fake, They were very electronic sounding. My favorite thing is the twiddly thing that sounds like when you put a card on your bicycle and it flicked against the spokes,
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a very annoying slide guitar type thing going on here. So those are some things to listen for as we listen to this.
I never missed you hardly before. Will I ever sit away from those saving turns where I can never show? Walk away from me, it only fits. What can you suppose to be? I'm not that kid in the windowsill. You're looking at my haircut, and my haircut's looking right your way, and my haircut's looking right between your soles. I never missed you hardly before. I never missed you hardly before.
I mean, that one kind of has a surprise on it because you think it's over, but
Yeah,
they give you
and
that
when
little last
the
part.
opening, that last part is basically the opening guitar riff coming back, but this time it's just the guitar and literally the drummer just clicking sticks,
Mhm.
and it works really well. And what's amazing about that song is, it's 1 minute and 13 seconds, but I feel like it goes on a long journey.
Yeah.
like one of my favorite things about the twiddly things that sounds like a card in the spokes is that it has this presence to it that when the song, there's two parts where the song starts up again at the end, and the first time that twiddly thing comes back again, and it just feels like it's just kicking in something like this weird piece of percussion that's just like adding this strange energy and kind of just a presence to the song that makes it feel bigger than it is.
Yeah. It's good. You guys probably caught some of the lyrics as we played that, but I will tell you one part that I'm pretty sure I have right. He says, "You're looking at my haircut, and my haircut's looking right your way. My haircut's right between your souls." So again,
Yes.
no
My haircut's
idea
looking right between your souls.
what the hell they're trying to say here, if they are really trying to say anything. I have a feeling these lyrics were written just about like they wrote the songs, kind of just as they're going. But it's still fun. There were definitely little lines lyrically that stick out to me in this album. Not a ton, but there are a few that are like, just catchy and memorable.
Yeah, and the opening line, "I never missed you hardly before," is a really great line.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
The next three, I don't know what they are exactly. They're really hard to understand. Enough that I don't know if I'm not confident to read them at all, honestly. But then it says, what can you supposed to be? Like literally, I've listened to it over and over, and it's very clear that he's saying, "What can you supposed to be? I'm not that kid in the windowsill. You're looking at my haircut, and my haircut's looking right your way, and my haircut's looking right between your souls." Yeah.
I don't
and
know.
It's very like,
is that soles of your feet, or do you have two souls? What are we meaning here?
Don't know.
Right.
Both are great though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Don't think too much about it.
Yeah. Because it could literally just mean like I'm staring down at the floor. Like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a gorgeous little pop song. Yeah.
Let me give you Chainsaw's background on it. He says, there was a time there when you couldn't get Bob and Jared off that blasted 8-track. At times, though, more often than not, very good results commenced. This was one of those times. Feeling left out, Randy confronted the fascists and in angry humor demanded that we appear on the track, so he landed the lead vocal job. I was off on my morning jog or something and missed the whole song entirely. I'm beginning to notice that rock and roll moves like a fast train and you must be in the right place at the right time or you miss your opportunities. Of course, I had no idea that analogy would apply within my own band, but I guess there's just no justice sometimes. So, anyway.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, I think this is it's probably one of my top 3 or 4 tracks on the album.
Yeah, I like this one quite a bit too.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to track 4, Bob's favorite, and in parentheses, seasonal thoughts.
Yeah, okay, so and I'm curious what you think, Clifton. I am not sure what instrument is providing the melody at the very beginning of the song. But again, it is that kind of like short little hooky melody that they might most likely played once, thought, this sounds good, and just added it to the song. And it's fun. Like it kind of morphs from this beginning sound into the rest of the song. Like the thing at the beginning is a little different than the rest of the song sounds, but it's good. This song, I think, does have some memorable lines that I found myself repeating later, even after I listened to it. So, yeah,
listen, because that opening, whatever sound it is that Jay's talking about, it almost sounds like a buzzing horn. Like it could be a horn, it could be a kazoo, it could be just like a trumpet played way too close to the microphone of a shitty 4-track. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know, but it sounds good. Then after that, the kind of the thing that is doing the lead thing in the song is, I think it's a synth. It's either a synth or a guitar. I can't tell because it's so phased. Yeah, listen to it. It kind of has this sound. That's a phase effect.
Now that it's the month of May.
I think these are memorable lyrics for me. I mean, they're nothing special, but the way he says, "You may think I'm dumb, but hey, that's okay." And part of me thinks maybe that is kind of like the Jetenderpaul motto a little bit. It's just like, you may think what we're doing is stupid, but we don't really care.
Yeah.
And it's a fun song. I mean, you've even got lyrics like "shake it boom, shake it, shake it, shake it boom."
I think it's "shake your boom."
Oh,
shake your
thank
boom,
you. Okay.
Shake your boom, shake your boom. Yeah.
And you've
It's
got
all
sha-la la 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 and even
sha-la-la-la-la.
a sha-na-na-na-na later in the song. And it's just like, it's just fun. It's catchy.
Yeah.
Again, the thing I think that makes these songs so great is they don't ride this too long. They almost always cut it off before you're like, okay, that's too much. Like,
Yeah.
they're just
And that's one of the
enough.
longest songs on the album.
Yes.
That's 2 minutes. 2 whole minutes, guys. Yeah. And they did something here that they do quite often, honestly, which is that they repeat the lyrics of the first verse with a slight rewrite, you know, like the first line is "every gorgeous day I say sha-la-la-la-la-la," and this on the second time through it's "every time I feel this way it's all sha-la-la-la-la-la," and then "shake your boom, shake your boom." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, another fun song. Now we're gonna skip one, our first skip.
We are, but I do want to, can I read you Chainsaw's write-up of the song we're skipping because I thought it was funny?
Yeah.
Okay, we are skipping this.
And this is one of those song fragments.
Yeah, this is clearly just some instrumental messing around, but here's what Chainsaw says about it. He says, "This tidbit features an instrument that perplexes our Occidental senses. Jared bought it in Turkey for about half a farthing. It is something like 8 strings, like 4 double strings, and is shaped like a chemist's flask. We assumed that it was tuned correctly when we went ahead and wrote a song on it. I guess this is an attempt to fuse jungle music with the Jetenderpaul repertoire. Possibly a future foreshadow, but don't get your hopes up. Serves as an intro to song 6, which we are going to talk about, India's Golden Gateway."
Is jungle music offensive there?
I was wondering about that as I read it.
Moving on. Okay.
So
the next song we're talking about is track 6, "India's Golden Gateway."
this has always kind of been a highlight for me on the album. This is definitely one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, this is one of the best songs.
This is really fun because of all the different instruments you can actually hear in this. There's a lot going on in this. And the beginning does, for some reason, start off sounding like music from India. To me, at least.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think it has kind of it's definitely a sitar sound, but it may just be like from a really cheap synth. In fact, we'll hear it by itself at the end of the song. But also, maybe my favorite part is the twirly thing comes back again.
Okay.
Gateway, you leave troubles far behind. Sorry to interrupt your sacred conversation. This trichotomy, it blows my mind. Leaving off the early birds, the whispers of 1,000 birds who I've seen people who can never change their minds. Thrones of inquiry, the terrors of a majesty. Endeavors are the lost hopes of our time. Selling books, selling pamphlets to the people who walk by are taken by surprise, and you think in a regency there'll never be a case. Kingdom on the chase for a prince of peace and a reprobate. An isolated chance, stealing and a glance to a ode to joy, ode to reliquaries. I'm feeling so away, I'm feeling so today. You build fables far behind. Sorry to interrupt your sacred conversation. This trichotomy, it blows my mind. Leaving off the early bird, the whiskers of 1,000 birds who I've seen people who can never change their minds.
Yeah. So you heard it on the song, but I just want to point out some of these lyrics. I mean, in some ways, like, let's be honest, some of their lyrics are really pretentious and just silly. And some of it feels like, oh, I just learned these new vocabulary words and I want to use them. But they're funny, right? So, and I couldn't catch them all in this song, but you hear stuff like,
I think I got most of them.
trichotomy, it blows my mind.
Yep.
He talks about selling books, selling pamphlets to the people who are blind, are taken by surprise. And then I didn't catch it all, but he says later, for a Prince of Peace, which, okay, there's your Christian reference, and a reprobate. Ode to joy, ode to, and it sounds like he says reliquary or reliquary, which is like, where you store relics. It just weird stuff going on that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's fun.
You want me to go through the lyrics? I think I got all of them here, except for like one. There's one line that I don't know.
Okay, give us some.
All right. When you build a gateway, you leave your troubles far behind. Sorry to interrupt your backwards conversation. This trichotomy, it blows my mind. Leaving off the early bird, the whiskers of 1,000 birds who, I've seen people who can never change their mind. Something of inquiry, something of the majesty. Free endeavors are the lost hope of our time. This is where it slows down. Selling books, selling pamphlets to the people who are blind, are taken by surprise. And you, did you think in the Regency, let there never be a case, a kingdom on the chase, for a Prince of Peace and a reprobate, an isolated chance, stealing and a glance, to an ode to joy, ode to reliquies. I'm feeling so away, I'm feeling so today. And then it repeats the first verse again.
So listeners, do you have more clarity now about what this is about? Because I don't think we do.
Yeah, when you build a gateway, you leave your troubles far behind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's
Come on.
super clear. I do think a lot of the stuff they're just making up as they go and like thinking of funny words to add. I will tell you though, Clifton, and you may know because you may have read this, but what do you think that wheel sound is in this?
I mean, my guess is almost, you know, those little tiny like whistles, like woo,
those
little whistles, but I don't think it's that because Braid uses one of those on their This Charming Man cover, and it sounds different than that.
Okay, you're gonna like this. Are you ready? I'm gonna read you Chainsaw's thing about this track. You're gonna like this.
Okay.
He says, what started off as bumping heads ended up with a darn fine track, probably, at least arguably, the best of the bunch. We feel as though nothing can match the processedly delayed, overly driven rhythm guitar, and that the intro is one of the finest we've written. The intro was nothing more than all of us playing quarter notes on our respective instruments, with me playing harmonics on guitar. Those harmonics were then fed through a digital delay pedal while Jared furiously twisted the delay knob from minimum to maximum, creating that wheel sound. Actually, the overdriven rhythm guitar idea mentioned above is where the punches started flying. Randy felt as though it would make it sound like Motley Crue if it were to put a heavy guitar in it. Jared differed. I came up with the idea to delay it, and it was good. Everyone began hugging and making up, and I do believe that Bob even shed a tear when the whole ordeal was over. Compromises are a good thing. So evidently, that's just like a really processed guitar.
Cool. Okay, good on them.
I know.
Like
I would have no idea without reading that. So grateful, Chainsaw, for that description.
Yes. All right. Anything else about this song other than it's one of the best on the album?
No, but it is definitely one of the best songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to track 7, Automation.
Yeah. So this one is instrumental, and so we don't have to talk too much about it. But I just thought it captured how Jetenderpaul plays around with different sounds and manages to create like another really catchy melody. Again, the melody is not driven by the vocals or the lyrics because they're not here. but it's really nice. And this song is definitely like guitar, drums. And I think that electric sound might even be a theremin. I'm not entirely sure. I'm curious what you thought it was, Clifton, but it definitely is catchy.
What stands out to me the most about this song is there's dueling guitars, and if you're listening to it with headphones or something, so you have a really tight stereo setup, it'll make you a little bit dizzy because they go back and forth a lot, and there's a point where they go back and forth so fast that it kind of messes with you a little bit.
It's nice. Right. I don't know. It doesn't need vocals,
No, that really kind of harsh synth kind of takes the place of vocals for this song. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you again what Chainsaw said. He says, it's the oldest tune in the bag. Jared and I wrote and arranged this song about 6 years ago when we were playing in a different band. Sounds a whole heck of a lot different. I think the original was like 6 minutes long and reminded me more of an Ocean Blue song. Actually, this was on the original demo given to Velvet Blue Music when we first met. Velvet Blue Music thought it needed vocals, so we added vocals. After much consideration, though, and various inputs from friends and fans alike, we've decided once again to keep this little ditty instrumental. So, in your face, Velvet Blue. No one tells Jetenderpaul what to do. Well, except those friends and fans that suggested that we do indeed keep off the vocal track. So, again, I appreciate the humor, and I agree. I don't think it didn't need vocals. No. It was nice. That really carried the melody enough at the end on its own.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next track we're doing is track 8, Swing Country.
Clifton, this one has background vocals.
I know, it's weird.
This is a pretty good one. This is another one I enjoy quite a bit.
Yeah. And this is my favorite vocalist. My favorite vocals on the album, I think.
And the
I think this is another one of the standout songs. I like this one
Mhm.
quite a bit. I love the background vocals. They need to do that more often on this album. And it's got that nice rhythm. It's like the boom chick chick boom chick boom chick chick
Yeah.
boom chick, and it's just you can understand all the vocals. They don't necessarily make sense, but you can understand them again. Yeah, it's a nice song.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the vocals on those opening lines are just really good, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, and we tremble like leaves. That's a good line. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing about the band is they're gonna have good lines. I don't know if there's a whole song on here that makes a ton of sense or really works together.
No, this one has two lines that are just chopped off like in the middle of a thought. Like
Yeah.
the first quote unquote verse is, "And we tremble like leaves, scrambling wildly for the coterie, and the syrup from the trees drips like butter in your." That's it.
Yeah.
Then it goes to the chorus, which is, "I am yours, I can't wake now. The evening wanes, couples dance by." Yep. So just right there. The second one, the second verse that ends in the middle of a thought is, "And we're looking in the city, yeah, for the mileage to be." I don't know. Like
I know.
I
But the way he
when I was listening to when I was trying to get the lyrics originally, I was really like, where's this line going? And then it doesn't go anywhere.
the way he says mileage though, he really has a lot of conviction. The mileage to, and then it's like, yeah, it just kind of cuts off. But
Yeah, for the mileage to be at least 18 GPM.
yeah, right.
All right.
To tell you more though, this one is actually Bob, the drummer, singing vocals.
Oh, cool.
According to Chainsaw, this is all Bob and Jared hogging the 8-track again, while Randy and I went downstairs to mooch cookies and ginger ale from the pantries of the Miller home. But he says in all seriousness, though, that is really Bob singing lead vocals. And it's really nice. Bob should sing lead vocals more because this is a good song.
I agree. All right, the next song we're going to do is track 9, Telling-ology.
Yep.
And in parentheses, Cosmic Sympathy.
And this is one Clifton wanted to do, so I'm curious, Clifton, what stood out to you about this one?
It's just one of my favorite tracks from the album. I really like it. I really like the melodies, and it also just is another track that just sounds ridiculously familiar, and I can't figure out why.
Keep telling me a throwing off a teleology. You're changing my mind, associating Plotinus with my mind. Rearrange my, I don't know that you're much different now. Not to tell our companies just where we are. Ransack your soul, appropriating the images you extol. To turn anemia, the backwards message, retrophilia. You change my, I don't know that you're much different. Not to tell our companies just where we are.
I especially like the second verse, or whatever you want to say it is, the opening lines. Ransack your soul, appropriating the images you extol.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about, but it sounds deep. Yeah.
But that's the thing about music. Sometimes more than a whole song, I just love the little lines that you can hang on to,
Mhm.
right? That like you kind of give them your own meaning, but the words sound nice together, and it's just, you know, I
Yeah.
don't know. Sometimes that's just what you need.
Yeah. Sometimes things just sound nice, you know.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And I really tried to get what the lyrics for this song, and so much of it is just I can't make it out. Like,
Right.
yeah, the line after those two that I just read is something anemia, the backwards message retropelia. Maybe they meant retrophilia, which is like a love of things from the past. I don't know. And I'm pretty sure at the top In the first verse, they reference a philosopher, but I can't make the name out. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Next song. Do we want to read the Chainsaw?
Here's what Chainsaw said about this one. He said, Randy came up with this one. I really feel that this is one of the more beautiful tunes on the record. We should keep Randy listening to that Celine Dion chick because that is when he does some of his more prettier songwriting.
It is a very pretty song.
Yeah.
All right. Next track 10, Self-Documentation.
With a question mark.
Yes, with a question mark.
I'm going to say, Clifton, that right now, as we're recording this is my favorite song on the album. I realize this could change, but I like this one a lot. I like the beginning. I like the way the guitar and that whatever that weird sound is that we're going to hear kind of stay on the same pitch as they move up the scale. And then this one, I feel like the lyrics really capture Jetenderpaul a little bit. Again, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but like the words they use, this just feels like very much like this is a good. If you're trying to explain Jetenderpaul, at least this version of Jetenderpaul on their first album to someone, this might be the song to play them. So this song is exactly 1 minute and 38 seconds, and that feels just right. Like it shouldn't be any longer. It's catchy for what it is. It doesn't need to be anymore.
Yeah, and the lyrics are, once again, hilariously just big words for no reason.
Can I read them? I think I got these right. You tell me.
Let's see what you get.
He says, well, I read your essay on higher archaeology, and I know that wordplay is academic forgery. And I'm going to, stop for a second. I'm going to say that's impressive to be able to rhyme those. But anyway, he says, so there, so what? I don't want any more of your ifs, your ands, or your uts. He says, I've seen the prices you've paid for your sophistry. The rhetorical devices don't mean much to me. So there, so what? I don't need any more of your ifs, your ands, or your uts. So to me, that's just like, using big college words doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's catchy. That's kind of Jetenderpaul.
Yeah. And that said, we're going to skip to a song that the lyrics make sense to.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Track 17, She Said, and in parentheses, Olathe. That's the name of the town they're from.
Yep. I like the little, like, this song is clearly they kind of wrote this pop song and then they added in all these weird little beep things over it that don't need to be there. And in fact, at one part, it sounds like they're going to fall apart. Like there's definitely a part in this song more than the others where I'm like, whoa, that's getting a little rough right there.
Yeah.
But it's fun. They're not necessary, all the beep sounds, but I like it.
Yeah. This is probably like the most straightforward song if it didn't have all those other things in it.
She said, well, she said,
song's only actually 1 minute and 11 seconds, but then there's like almost 20 seconds of, or 15 seconds of silence after the end of the song.
Yeah, I guess maybe they just need to stretch out the album a little bit.
Yeah. So the lyrics there are, she said, let's ride our bikes to Kerrs. So I said, okay, we'll stop at candy shops along the way, pop rocks and lollipops to pass the time away. She said, I'm the only boy for her, and it's a Saturday, so frequent stops at empty lots along the way, car hops and lots of cops cruising down Olathe.
There you go.
That's it.
Let me give you Chainsaw's write-up of this. He says, definitely a quintessential fist-pumping anthem aimed for all kids who cruise their hometown's main drag in a low-riding Saturn with wheels that stick out and blue neon lights that look like those radiating from E.T.'s mothership. I don't know if that's just a Midwestern thing. Do they have those goofy-looking wheels and lightsaber-like lights on the West Coast too? Do you even have any idea what I'm talking about? Anyway, all the little doohickey keyboard parts make this cut happen, courtesy of that mastermind named Jared Miller. Also, the acoustic rhythm guitar I furiously strummed is dug rather well. So, there we go.
I don't know what dug rather well?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Yeah, that's just a fun little cute song, I think. That one's nice. By the way, we skipped a song called In Parking Lots that I want to read Chainsaw's write-up on because I want to figure out see if you know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I almost include this song. At some point we had to cut some.
Yeah. The original title of this song was Aeroplane, but some obnoxious, once innovative but any more bad band that will go unidentified for legal reasons up and stole that name from us and turned it into one of the crappiest singles of 1996. Then another band that used to be fairly good but got too caught up in self-indulgence stole that title from another band and turned it into a title for a B-side compilation. Being the lowlifes we are, we didn't want to compete with the obvious excellence and opted for this working title. What bands do you think he's talking about?
Maybe it's this.
Reasons, we'll stop there. That's Red Hot Chili Peppers' Airplane. Maybe that makes sense, that it could be that. I mean, the first thing that came to mind for me was obviously Neutral Milk Hotel, which these guys obviously know.
Yeah.
And is the right time frame, but I don't think they're referencing those in either of those crappy single or crappy B-sides compilation.
Right, no, for sure not.
All right. Anyways, all right, moving on. So the next song we're doing is track 21, The Post-Colonialist Seas.
Yeah. So this one, Clifton, every time I heard this back in the day, this one starts off sounding like an emo song, I think, for like the first 8 to 10 seconds. And this is what I always call their emo song. By the way, I think this might have the best title on the album. This
absolutely.
Or hang on, there was also the Word Perfect Gigolo that we're not covering, but
good.
those are those are both good.
Word Perfect Gigolo is not that great a song, but this is a pretty good song. Yeah, and yes, when I read the titles for the songs, this is the one that I wanted to get to immediately.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, I think it sounds a little emo at the beginning, don't you think? Just the very beginning.
Let's see.
And we're coming
Yeah, it sounds emo, but it doesn't even get to the end of the first line. Like, by the time he makes the rhyme of, they tried to steal our beauty and our pride, by the time he gets to pride, it doesn't sound emo to me anymore.
No, I'm thinking first like
Yeah.
8-10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I like where it says they're coming back again. But it just occurred to me, do you think they're saying they hide their booty because we're coming back again?
Yeah. So the first two lines are, well, they tried to steal our beauty and our pride. Well, they hide their booty because we're coming back again. Yeah. That's
Or
exactly what they
booty
say.
is like treasure because the
Yes.
the colony and the people are seizing.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I didn't get much else of the lyrics. There is a line that says the pirates of something buried history, but I didn't get much there.
Okay. Yeah, this is a fun song. This is actually one where the bass comes through pretty well in parts, and which is pretty enjoyable. I feel like a lot of this album you don't hear a lot of the bass, but this is one where it does, and so
yeah,
nice change.
For me, it was the most disappointing song on the album.
What? Really?
Yeah.
So you love the title, and then you heard it, and you're like, meh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, Chainsaw said Post Colonius is probably my favorite song on the record, according to him. He said, I went about 4 days with the melody stuck in my head. I think this was the last one recorded for Trying Signals. Good thing we waited it out, I guess.
I think the melody is a bit of an earworm, and I don't, but in an annoying way. I think that's why I don't like it. I don't know.
Okay.
The next song, though, I really like it. I think it's maybe one of the best songs. It's one of the best songs on the album. Yeah. All right. Track 24, Don't Look Down.
Well, I'm glad you said it was one of the best ones, because this actually ended up being released as like a single on an EP that comes like, I couldn't tell if it was later in 97 or early in 98 that Velvet Blue Music puts out. And I'm not sure 100% why they chose this song. I mean, it's not a bad song. I think also because it's one of the longest ones, and it's more like structured
it's most like a
song.
It's most like a song. Yeah. Yeah.
But this is one where I think the instruments and the weird sounds carry the melody like more than the vocals do.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it sounds a lot like an early Tullycraft song.
Okay, there you go.
It's like starting up a set so far down. When we talk about the car and the jet, we are so down. 'Cause you can't hear those words I keep saying. You are taking your claims. Institutions are not to blame. Sailing off into shame on the wings of old profane. Look out! Look out! Like starting off a set so far with the shoe down. When we talk about the car and the jet, we are so down. 'Cause you can't hear those words I keep saying. We are taking our claims. Institutions are never to blame. Sailing off into shame. The wings of old profane. Trouble.
Get a long tail of synths here. Did you notice in the that interview that you read that at one point someone yells "trouble" and everyone laughs and the interviewer seems confused?
Ah, I get it now. Good catch, Clifton.
I was like, "Come on, guy! Have you not listened to the album?"
Oh, okay. Good, very good catch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to find because there's so much about this that sounds like Tullycraft. There's so many vocal turns and like that just seem so much like Tullycraft but I couldn't find any individual song that it sounded like.
Yeah, it's a good song. It again, it kind of has a, like, what would you call that last part? The bridge, even though it never really goes back to like a verse or anything after that. But it
Outro.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's probably more fitting. It feels more like a full song more than most of these on here.
Agreed.
Would you like to hear what Chainsaw had to say about it?
Yes.
He says, definitely and positively the most frustrating track in all of the musical potpourri. This song is so different than how it originally sounded when Randy presented it to us last summer. Really, half the reason is because I just couldn't figure out a lead guitar part for it. The first couple of times we played it, it actually sounded decent with the lead I came up with, but through the months it just became very, very grating until finally we just knocked it out of our set list. Determined, though, Randy insisted that we record it anyway and see what kind of studio trickeries we could come up with. Now, the ambience and ominous keyboard parts make it a sure winner of a track, and everyone is happy with it. Ironically, though, once upon a time, we opened up shows with the song, and now to pull it off live would be nearly impossible. There you go.
Interesting. Definitely been there before, though, where like I write a lead part for a song, I like it, and then like 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, this is the worst. Like, it's just annoying. Like, it's not even bad. It's just like, it's so annoying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a fine line between catchy and annoying.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easy to miss. Yeah. Fun song. I do think it's if it's not the best on the album, it's probably the second best or something like that, because it's a really good song. And the lyrics honestly kind of make sense.
I could not catch what they all were in this one. So
okay, I think I've got them pretty good, except for one part of the first line.
Okay,
it's like starting off a sentence so far from showdown. I don't know if sentence showdown is correct, but the rest of it I'm pretty good about. Okay, when we talk about the car and the jet, we are so down because you can't hear those words I keep saying. You are staking your claim. Institutions are not to blame. Selling off into shame on the wings of old profane. Look out. It's like starting off a sentence so far with the showdown. When we talk about the car and the jet, we are so down. Because you can't hear those words I keep saying. We are staking our claims. Institutions are never to blame. Selling off into shame on the wings of old profane. Trouble.
Okay.
It's a bit, obscure, but it sounds to me like it's about like people not taking responsibility for their actions, or maybe even more importantly, institutions not taking responsibility for their actions.
There you go.
Right? Yeah. Because institutions are never to blame, right? Corporations and the cops. Okay.
And churches, for that matter, Clifton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Never to blame for what goes wrong. It just happened. You couldn't have stopped it. Nothing could have been done about it.
Bad apples, right?
Yeah.
Never the institution itself. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Never. Okay. I'll stop there. All right, Jay, I think we're doing one more here. There, a song fragment, in fact.
Yeah.
Pretty Piano.
Mansfield Park edit. Pretty Piano.
Sure. But he doesn't know where that came from.
This is the second to last song. This is a weird one to end on, but I just wanted to include this because I thought it was a really good example of like the song fragment thing they're doing. And it's just another track where you can tell they were experimenting with various sounds and melodies, and it just kind of seems to work. This is only like 30 something seconds long. It shouldn't be any longer than that, but it just gives you a sense of kind of how they play around with stuff and are like, oh, okay, we're kind of layering something on top of something, and like,
yeah,
we're going somewhere here.
The layering is very nice. There's like 3 or 4 parts to it, and it is, as they say, very pretty.
It's the Mansfield Park edit, which Mansfield Park is a Jane Austen novel. I've never read it, but don't know if that has anything to do with it actually, but there we go.
I mean, if we're gonna read Chainsaw's description, he's not sure either.
Yeah. He said, "I've learned sometimes to just not ask."
All right, Jay. So overall, what do you think of this album?
So obviously I'm biased because I liked it back in the day, but I think it's still really good. I'm gonna make a big claim here, and I'm curious if you agree. I think it does the lo-fi thing pretty well, and I think kind of in a way it's kind of timeless. Like, I feel like somebody could put this out today and you'd be like, yeah, pretty good. Just because it does this type of genre so well that it doesn't, again, somebody could put it out today and you'd be like, yeah, we're pretty good.
Yeah. I think there's some of the recording technologies used that might point to when it was recorded in the way it makes it lo-fi, but otherwise I don't think nothing yelled 90s about this to me.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. What did you think, since somebody had never listened to it before?
No, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, when I compared it to other things that I like that are similar, it's not up to snuff with those things, you know. But it was still really enjoyable in its own right, especially for a first album, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think it's really good. I'm gonna go, and I hadn't had time, and I'm gonna go listen to the rest of what the band has done at this point. And you know, one thing I wonder is why we didn't have more music like this in the Christian industry, kind of Christian marketplace.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there were just in one of those interviews, they kind of talk about who they like in the Christian industry, and you can probably guess it's like they name like Pedro the Lion, Soul Junk, Danielson. There might have been a couple others, but it's the stuff you would expect. Like the kind of
they said they respected Danielson but didn't like Danielson.
Okay, right, but they appreciated like what he's doing. Like they got the artistic sense of, you know, and so I think there just weren't that. I don't know. There just weren't that many, and in some ways, not Christianity, but so I want to be careful when I say this, but like the evangelical culture wasn't really, I don't think, super supportive of like stuff that was like this, that was like pushing the limits, because it's kind of cookie cutter. I'm talking about the culture, right? Like it's just, it's kind of got its own thing going. I mean, we spent 2 weeks on DC Talk, right? It's got its own thing going, and there's not a lot of room for stuff like this, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder if the other side of it is just that this kind of rejection of the rules type of thing doesn't lead people who are Christians who want to make this kind of music to just be like, why the Christian music industry at all? You know, we'll just do our own thing. Yeah,
I think you're exactly right too. Yeah, I mean, why are we even bothering with like the Christian world? Because it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and like there's a couple mentions of God in here, but like there's nothing overtly evangelical or Jesus-y about this album, you know. So I think, you know, from Velvet Blues perspective, this is a really fascinating project by people who are pushing the limits. But we're still in that. But the thing is, the weird thing for me is that they're in Kansas. Like, who else is in Kansas? Right. You know, like nobody. It's just them, right? Like they're not even in Nashville. They're just sitting by themselves in the middle of the country with no other Christian industry around them. So they had to, obviously they knew Tooth and Nail because they wanted to go get on Tooth and Nail, but at the same time, I don't know, it just seems weird that that was ever a goal of theirs.
I get the sense, and I'm speculating for sure, but I get the sense that maybe they grew up Christian, but it also like had enough freedom, and now they're in college that they like listen to other music or listen to other indie rock and indie pop stuff, and like getting those influences, but still, you know, enough in the Christian scene that just kind of like that made sense, but they weren't like
Yeah.
super strict about it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what they did. You'll see on their next couple of releases, and you can just tell by looking back at the archive of the band's website and some other stuff that they're trying to kind of broaden that. They're really pushing like the reviews they get of their next couple albums that are in like more bigger, more general market magazines and stuff. And trying to kind of just open themselves up to just the regular market. But unfortunately, I wonder if, because of the time period when this is released, if it almost hurt them coming from such a narrow little, scope of things.
Yeah, because they sought out the Christian industry. Like so many bands get caught into the Christian industry because they are Christians and they're kind of playing with those other bands, But they sought it out, which is weird to me. Which also makes me think or wonder if there would have been any kind of any label that would have published this outside of the Christian industry.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think today there would be, because anybody can have a label, right? And there would be all kinds of lo-fi stuff. Back in the day, I'm not as sure, but I will say, just side note, because you talked about wanting to listen to other stuff, I'm curious to get your perspective when you do, because I do think they get better musically.
Okay.
Like, and their songs become more song-ish, like more normal. They're still weird. They still have all this weird stuff, but they're better, I think, as it goes on.
Okay.
And they're a little more polished sounding too. They're not as lo-fi.
Yeah. So let's move on to this. In that, let's talk about this album cover.
Okay.
Because listeners, if you've never heard Jetenderpaul, the album cover is like it's kind of purplish it's a drawing of like two colonial era, like American colonial era, maybe a man and a woman, or maybe it's like more Renaissance era. It's hard to say, right?
Or almost like the French, like the woman's got the like huge dress and like the white hair, kind of like like 1700s, like I don't know what you call that.
Somewhere in there. Yeah. And it says Jetenderpaul up top with no particular. It's not like Times New Roman, but it's not different enough to make you go, oh, that's
it's not a
Times
great
New
font.
Roman. Yeah. And then Trine Signals, the Histrionics of Suggestion, is another just free font, kind of in Word, Microsoft Word or something like that, right? That's what it looks like. And so when I saw, when I saw this originally, I don't know if I ever saw it when I was a kid, but if I had, I would have had the same reaction. That I looked at this and I was like, oh, is this like some older guys? I don't know why I had this reaction, but is this kind of like some older guys doing something more experimental? And the other side of that would have been if I had seen this just sitting on the shelf. Like that's the thought that I had when Jay suggested that we do it. But then if I had seen this sitting on the shelf at the Christian bookstore, I would have just thought to myself, that's old people music.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what did they want us to think when we saw this?
I mean, I think they wanted it to seem more like a mishmash of stuff. Like if you look at that insert photo where it says Torquemada's Poisonous Confession, where it's like the baseball card mixed with I don't know, Voltron, or like I don't know, it's got all this weird like combo of art laid on top of each other. That feels maybe more like what they were going for. Yeah.
I don't know what I would have thought about that either.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
This looks like the weird output of some not quite ready for market AI art generator,
Yeah, actually, yeah. They could have had better artwork on this for sure.
Yeah, right. Like, because there's other bands out there doing things like this at the time. I feel like they should have maybe not copied, but at least drawn some inspiration for how they marketed themselves as far as album covers go.
In fact, I'd say even on the back is better, because it's got like on the right side, it's got like kind of a drawing of like a shepherd looking guy. And on the left, it's like they took that and made it almost look like Picasso-ish, where they've like taken it from all these different viewpoints and merged it together.
Yeah.
That seems a little more like what they're trying to
The
go for.
drawings are better, but the way it's put together looks like it's just clip art in Microsoft Word.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of reveals the time period. You know, also it's still one of Velvet Blue's early releases, and I think they just didn't
Yeah.
have good enough resources for
Okay,
this yet.
maybe so.
I mean,
But yeah, it's a little disappointing.
yeah.
And otherwise, the packaging is very minimal. It's just a single fold, 2 pages. That's it.
Yeah. As we've said, definitely no lyrics. That's why we're trying to decipher them. Not that you really, this is an album you really
Yeah.
don't need them. I mean, we just would appreciate it because we're doing a podcast on it. But
Sure. I doubt, if they had all the money in the world, I doubt they would have published the lyrics.
yeah, right.
Yeah. All right, Jay, do you want to tell us what these guys have been up to since then?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I couldn't find stuff on all of them, but I'll tell you what I know. So after this album, Jetenderpaul released the CD EP Don't Look Down, I think in early 98 on Velvet Blue, followed by kind of their second album, The Woolen Spires, in 99. And that was co-released by Velvet Blue Music, Burnt Toast Vinyl, and Vainglorious Home Recordings, which is kind of a label started by Randall Stevens of Jetenderpaul. And in 2000, they released Jetenderpaul Presents The Modal Lines. And then finally in 2001, this was kind of their final release, was the CD EP A Casualty Too Serious to Afford, that was released on Burnt Toast Vinyl and the Norwegian label Hype City Recordings. I should also mention that they made a great music video for the song Our Future's Past off the Modal Lines album, and it's really worth looking up on YouTube because it's well done. It's impressive considering the other Christian music videos we've talked about. Not that Jetenderpaul really feels like Christian music, but still, you should check it out. It's good. It's well done. I will say in 98, Jared Miller and Bobby Cave formed Top 40 Radio along with Alicia Luma. And then also separately, Randall Stevens along with Harrington Quotient, Brian Zimmerman, and Elihu Revival formed the Fifth Monarchy Men. And those two groups together released a split EP on Jetenderpaul's Vainglorious Home Recordings label. Stevens also formed another group, the Shaker Manifesto, and they released an EP on Vainglorious Home Recordings in 2001. So, it's
But there's also Pine Tar.
Yes, that's another one somewhere.
That's more like country type stuff, yeah.
Right. So they've got some side projects going that they're kind of doing on their own label. But 2001, the best I can tell is that the band members were living in different places across the country. I know at least Randall Stevens was living in Florida, while I think some of the band members are still in Kansas, and there may have been one or two others somewhere else. And this is just me speculating because I can't find anything for sure, but I think it just probably became too difficult to keep the band going, and they seem to go on permanent hiatus. But Jetenderpaul's website is still up to this day, jetenderpaul.com. And the last update, though, was in 2006. And this is where I found out that Jared Miller has accepted a job with the FBI in Washington, D.C., where he lives with his wife. This is in 2006, though, so who knows if you're still there, Jared. Also, they said then they were working on a epic 9-minute long indie pop song called A Providential Trapdoor. But unfortunately, I can't tell that the song ever came out. I will tell you, I do know this from snooping online, that Bobby Cave is a high school assistant principal in Kansas City, and Randall Stevens is a professor of American and British Studies at the University of Oslo in Norway. And he's also written a book called The Devil's Music, How Christians Inspired, Condemned, and Embraced Rock and Roll, that evidently has gotten really good press. By the way, I haven't read it, but just what I've read about.
Maybe we need to go to Oslo to interview this guy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Randall wants to come on the podcast. We'll see.
No, we need to go there and interview him.
Oh, okay. So we need to travel all the way over for our podcast
Yeah.
that has like we have like 10,000 listeners, so surely we can totally afford to do that. But unfortunately, I can't find anything up to date on Jeff Teal or Jared Miller. So if anyone knows, would love to hear. But yeah, I sense that Jetenderpaul was just kind of like doing their own thing, doing it really well, but just didn't get appreciated enough back in the day, and it probably just got too difficult to keep doing this with everybody living apart and, moving on with their lives, getting married, all that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already part of a very niche market, and they're like the most, like, you know, they're occupying. If they were even in the mainstream market, they would be like in the most niche corner of the mainstream market.
Right.
You know, so like in a niche corner of a niche market. That's yeah.
Yeah, because
they have, and all 4 fans really enjoy them. I'm sure.
exactly. That's the thing. Is like, you know, even like Elephant Six bands that I feel like they kind of fit in, especially their later stuff, kind of fit in with that a little bit.
Yeah.
They didn't have a ton of fans like that. You know, those bands weren't
Sure.
huge, and so then this is even more obscure. And so, yeah, here we go.
Yeah. I mean, Apples and Stereo played on the what's it called, the Stephen Colbert Show, right? So
You're right. They've done, but I don't know if they were making a living off their music that level.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very true. All right. Well, do you have an award for this album, Jay?
I do, Clifton.
Ooh.
I know you're like, whoa, you're ready. Okay. I'm going to give this the Kitchen Sink Award because I feel like they threw everything into this album.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't know if that's the best name. Can we like the whole refrigerator? Like it's just like a big pot of stew and they just dump the whole refrigerator into it. Yeah.
Okay.
But something like that. I like it. I like
all right.
it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to punch up your
Yeah, I know, man. You like asked if I had everything and you just knocked it down, but all right, whatever.
All right, Jay, well, what are we doing on our next episode?
Clifton, I think we are having another guest, and
Our first guess.
Because
we're recording these out of order.
Oh yeah, you're right. Shoot, scratch that. Ask me
Our
again.
first guest for the year.
Ask me again.
No, keep going.
Oh, so yeah, we're out of order in the way we're recording these. Yeah, no, our next album we're gonna do Kush is self-titled LP Kush. And we have our very dear friend and listener, Brock, is going to come on and tell us about Kush.
Yes.
It'll be good. You should definitely check it out.
He's our number 1 contributor on Patreon.
Yes,
and
he is.
if you contribute in the same category as Brock, you can also come on the show and pick which album you want to do. Although it was such a great experience, I think we would have let him no matter what. But
yep, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Not that we've already recorded it, but anyway.
Not that we've already recorded it out of order. Okay.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Music Saved Us.
If you enjoyed your time with us, please leave us a review or share this episode. Visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute and get extended episodes. Visit our website, yourmusicsavedus.com, to find out all the ways to listen. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Join our Facebook group or follow us to keep up with the latest or interact with us. Send complaints and disagreements to yourmusicsavedus@gmail.com.
The music in this episode is the work of Jetenderpaul and is used with apologies, not permission. And you can find Jetenderpaul at jetenderpaul.com. They're also on Bandcamp. They've got albums on Spotify. Go check them out, please.
All right. And we'll put all of that in the show notes as well. Thanks everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.